part in the Battle of Glen Shield together, very briefly before we ran away. And the Campbells, the second most biggest clan of the world, of Scotland rather, they hated the MacGregors simply because they were neighbours, and the Campbells wanted their territory. And so after years and years of fighting and feuding and doing all manner of stuff between them, the Campbells finally stuck on a brilliant plan of going to the king and saying, it's like you, when you're a wee boy or a wee girl running to your teacher and saying, Mass, he pulled my hair. Well, that's what the Campbells did. They went to the king, James IV, I think this was, or James V possibly, and said, see those MacGregors? They're terrible, they keep stealing our cows. Please, could you not give me some way to stop them? And the king said, well, okay, have this. Have an order of fire and sword, one of these legal documents that specified that anyone who was named on it could be killed. And this was a license to kill, literally, anyone who was a MacGregor. And so the whole clan became outlawed. And at that point they kind of reverted to using their mother's names generally. So loads of them started to use their kind of non-clan names, you know. And they became known as the Children of the Mist because they were, you know, dispersed from their clan territories and kind of move about and become robbers, I suppose. And that ban on the MacGregor was only lifted around about the time that Rob Roy was kicking around the place. He was born in something like 1670 and died in, I don't know, 1720 or 1730, something like this. Around about that year anyway. And he was very much a man of his people, even though he wasn't so much of a man of his time, I guess. He was a wee bit of an anachronism, and he loved to go out feuding, and he loved to go out stealing. See, you know these big orange hairy cows that people associate with Scotland? Well, they were the basis of the Highland economy, simply because you can eat these things, you can get milk from them, not very good milk, but milk nonetheless, and not very much of it either, but you can get it. You can cut a hole in them and collect the blood and you know, use the blood in your cooking. You can kill them and take off the leather, or turn the skin into leather obviously. You can take off the horns and use that to make stuff. If you soak it in water for a while, it becomes very malleable and then it's hardened again into whatever form you've fashioned it. People keep asking to do anything with the hair, and as far as I know they didn't. Other than burn it, I suppose, maybe to make a funny smell if you want to get rid of something. So these things were extraordinarily valuable, and obviously the more cows you had, the wealthier you were. And if you could take those cows from someone you didn't like, if you could take them from, say, an enemy clan, you'd be doing two things with the same theft. You'd be strengthening your own position while weakening your friend, your opposition rather. So, all good. Rob Roy and his pals obviously would go out and steal as many cattle as possible, take them home and distribute them amongst the people. That's what some people say. Other folk simply suggest that Rob went and stole these cows and kept them for himself. I don't know. The thing that made him famous in his own time, I guess, was his ability of getting out of trouble. See, he was quite often on the wrong side of the law. And obviously, the fact that he was a cow thief, a cateran, meant that he was quite often getting into fights, but he was cunning, and he was also pretty damn good with a sword, you know, and he had this natural ability that other folk didn't have. See, they reckon that Rob Roy MacGregor was a really small wee guy, but he had masses of big ginger hair and huge long arms. They reckon that he could tie his shoes without actually bending over, which is pretty cool, really. In fact, imagine an orangutan in a kill, and that's what fucking Rob Roy MacGregor looked like, kind of knuckle kind of scraping across the floor, covered in ginger hair, with a big sword. And because of his extra reach, that obviously gave him an extra ability when it came to the fighting, when it came to the feuding. Because very, very often, rather than everyone who was involved in one of these big raids fighting against each other with the potential of everyone dying, because it was kind of half civilised, because it was seen as something that just happened, you know, it was only around Rob's time that stealing cattle came to be seen as that, as stealing. Prior to that, it was just something that happened, you know. In the winter it snows, in the summer it gets hot, and in between times someone's going to come and steal your cows. It was a wee bit kind of expected, and so when a cattle raid did take place, very often, if there was someone kind of charismatic enough, kind of authoritative enough, I don't know when to stop saying that word, they'd be pushed to the front. You know, you could choose a volunteer, you could choose a champion, and because of his ability with the sword, Rob was always, you know, shoved up to the front of his gang, and because of his extra reach, he tended to win his duels. Sometimes they wouldn't fight even to the death, they'd fight only until first blood had been, you know, drawn, until the first wound had been inflicted upon someone. So again, it's very civilised. They reckon that Rob met his end up there in Balchudder, that's where he died. He moved there when he was a pretty old guy to be my neighbour, 1720 or something. But as an old dude, he and some of his pals went off to rob some cows from the clan McLaren, and they were caught, they were rumbled, and Rob Rob, of course, was shot at the front, and this young wee dude, this young gun, I suppose, came up from the opposition from the McLaren and said, "I'll fight you, Rob. Come, draw your weapon. Prepare to breathe your last." And Rob said, hang on, how about this? How about we fight to just first blood? I'm old, man. I'm too old to be jumping about here waving swords around all day. Why don't we fight just to first blood? And the young guy thought of this and said, well, maybe that's a good idea. I'm going to get to fight Roy McGregor, a living legend, and I'm not going to die. It's all good. It doesn't matter if I win or lose, I'm still going to be famous. But Rob didn't even have the energy for that, for even just the shots of Jules. I reckon that as he drew his blade, he inflicted a wee cut upon himself. He cut his own figure, you know. And he showed it to the people, he showed it to the wee fella, and he showed it to his family and said, look, first blood has been drawn, I salute you, sir, you're a better swordsman than me. Put his arm around his shoulder and took him off to the pub for a wee dram. But that wound that he gave himself, the wound that he cut on his hand, didn't heal. He got blood poisoning, septicemia, and died from it back yonder in North Winter. So they say. He's buried under a stolen Knights Templar gravestone. It's cool. Have any of you seen the